Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me? Been a while since I did a stream. Been a while. Just let me know if everything's okay. You can hear me okay. We've got 23 people in the building. Can everybody drop a like, as it massively helps us out. And yeah, and then once this becomes a video, because I haven't done a preview for this game, instead I thought I'd do it as a live stream. One, because I haven't done a live stream in a while, but two, because as well I dropped a SAR video yesterday, and we've had so much stuff out on the channel in the last few weeks. So I hope you guys have been enjoying all that. But yes, we've got Storyteller. Hey, I'm here to enjoy your live session. Keep it up. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy. Eddie saying tactics in the morning is what he needs. It's what we need. It's what we need to win this game tonight. Daniel Knight, big up. Drop Ganacho. This is just the teams that both teams played with last time. I'll show you what I would go for shortly. Daniel saying, let's go. Score predictions, people. Everybody else get your score predictions in, because I will give mine more towards the end. Everybody saying that everything is all good. And Adoration I says tactic class is what I'm here for. We could call it a tactics class. Could call it a little tactics lecture, is what we could say. Daniel Knight saying 2-1. Is that to Chelsea or to Arsenal? Let's have a chat with the chat for the first few minutes. 2-0 for Eddie. Are these in favour of Chelsea, or are they in favour of Arsenal? Hopefully Chelsea, right? Delap, João Pedro link up tonight. There's a lot of room for that in specific games. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it from the bench tonight. I don't think we'll see it from the start. And I'll show you why in a minute. I've also got some sort of tactical snippets and bits that we're gonna have a look at. So it should be a good stream. It should be a good stream. Make sure you've dropped a like just to continue sort of running this up. Eddie thinks 2-0 Chelsea. That would be absolutely wonderful. And it would make for a brilliant post-match review. 12 likes so far, and we've got, how many did I say? 26. Can we run that to 26 likes really quickly? And then we can get into things. Any questions, put them in the chat as well. And just a quick plug as well. The Mamadou Sarr video is doing really well. It's nearly on 5K, and it's only been out for like 12 or so hours. So go check that out, because one, it's doing well, but two, it's got some very nice bits of information in there. If you want to know more about Mamadou Sarr, why we've pulled him back, why Liam Rosenior probably wants him, all those little bits. There's a video on the channel, the most recent one, to show you that. What's up, lads? Up the chills from Bershi. Yo, what's up, Ivan? I haven't seen you in a while. I guess it's because do you pop in more for streams than you do for videos? But nice to see you again, bro. Very good to see you. Will we see James in midfield today? I can see it coming. Let's start with that. Concerns about Sarr aerial ability. Not fully. Like I mentioned it in the video, there's a few things that I think he needs to work on. Nice. Watch the Sarr one whilst cooking. Nice one. He's got the physical capabilities to deal with it. It's just there's a few sort of like tippets and like how I think he's going to fully adjust straight away. Am I concerned about him completely aerially? No, because I think, like I say, he's got the height, he's got the frame, and his positioning towards aerial duels isn't bad. It's just I do think bigger strikers who have that sort of build on him, or have at least a stockier sort of presence, could sort of dislodge him and make things awkward. But we'll see. We'll see. That is something that I'd like to keep an eye on for sure. The aerial ability. Right. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Chelsea, because let's talk about the team first that I think we could see. And let's put it into, let's say, in possession. Now, I'll give you a minute to sort of look what we've got here. Chelsea saying 2-1 Chelsea, Common New Blues. Big up Black Mamba. We've got 43 people in the building now. So continue those likes coming because it continues to push the stream. And that's how we're getting more and more people in here. So, because we're also making a push for 10K subs. So every single like is you guys helping me towards that 10K massively. But yeah, this is the team I've got on paper, right? So Sanchez, I think, will start in goal. Of course, there's the option that Jorgensen could start as a cup game. But I think when it comes to these sort of games, I think this is such a big game now where it's a chance to make it to the final. And of course, it's a huge game. I think you need to call on Sanchez for that, because if we need to be kept in the game from big saves. Now, yes, Sanchez was actually really poor in the last game against Arsenal, made 2 big mistakes, but he's key. You wanted to see Derry and Keanu today. Well, you wanted to see him against Arsenal. I think it's too big a game for that. And I love both Derry, Keanu. I love Shimaheka. There's so many players that I like at that. Oh, of course. I think he wasn't on the bench in the last game, was he? So that's a great shout, actually. I'd forgot about that. Because it was Sherman Lowe on the bench the other day. On the bench, fair. Kukre at left back. So, yeah. My only problem with this is the setup and the philosophy behind the lap is that he is being used as a disruptor, not a 9. Shearer need. Yeah, I think that's true. I do think that's true. Him as a disruptor, and that's exactly what he did at the weekend to allow João Pedro to flourish. So the lap's role at the weekend, as much as people will say that he was poor at the weekend, and I think it didn't have the best game, but I think he did his job and he was that disruptor, like you said, especially in that second half, to allow João Pedro to sort of take the reins. So I've got Sanchez in goal. Then, if I was to put it into like how the back four would look, I have got it with Kukre left back, Chalobah, Fofana, James. The big choice here. Now, I think Chalobah and Fofana, that's pretty locked, and I think Kukre to deal with Saka as well, and especially after coming on at the weekend for Hato. I think these 3 are pretty locked. Now, the decision, in my opinion, is whether Reece starts right back. And the reason for that is because I think that this is how the back 3 will form on the ball. I think that this is the sort of 3-2 base that we'll have. Casado's going to be one of them, and I think Enzo's going to be in the 10. So the decision for me, Saka is injured as well. I did mean Noni, I won't lie, but I did have Saka there from the default setting. But yes, Noni will likely play on the right. Trossard on the left is how I'm imagining it to be. But yes, you're right, Saka is out. Or at least it very much looks like it. Never miss a video analysis in X you upload. So nice. Big up. Do you think Sarr can become a star until the end of the season? I think he can till the end of the season. Whether he does over Chalobah and Fofana or not, I still think it's going to be a competition. But if you, like with the video yesterday, I think it will be Chalobah, Fofana, Sarr as the main 3. And then I'm hoping a Chempong, because Sarr and Chalobah can take a little bit more of the work. I'm hoping that it will continue to be sort of Chalobah and Sarr as those slightly more ball touch heavy defenders, even though it's not Chalobah's like forte. And then Fofana and Josh as your more aggressor types, and you sort of rotate between the 4 of them and make sure that you've got nice pairings amongst that. So that's what I'm hoping for. So yeah. Where was we? James. Right. So the decision for me is Santos. Oh, that's not the right thing. Santos and James, or James and Gusto. That is probably the only thing. I think the decision between Gusto and Santos and which one plays, because Gusto was this utility man for Maresca. And he was the guy that, and again, I still think he could be that for Rossini. I think he can play with that touch, being that touchline guy. He offers so many qualities for this team. But what we've also seen is the utility man under Rossini is a little bit more been Santos in terms of somebody who can become that 5th centre back in a back 5, like when we're off the ball. He's part of the fixed pivot. He knows the system. So I do think it's a choice between the 2. I think everything else, I'm pretty much certain, is how we'll play, depending. Yes, Esteval could return and play, but I think that it will just be safer to tread on the side of caution with him, because unfortunately he's going through something. So condolences to him, and obviously, hopefully, he is okay. But I do think that Enzo playing in the 10 feels quite pretty much locked. Like I say, Pedro, I think he'll play up front. I think he'll play as the 9. I think Palmer will play on the right and he'll come into this pocket. And this is why it's difficult, because Palmer playing this right wing role and Fernandez sort of playing as that 10 means that this is sort of how the front line would shape up, with these two in the pockets, Fernandez and Palmer, and then this right winger, they have to be in tandem with Palmer. This right sort of right back becoming a right-sided width holder. James has done it, but he hasn't done it for a full 90. He's done it in like sort of specs so far. So do we go safer and play Reece in the middle and try to really win that midfield battle with Caicedo, James, and Fernandez? Or does he go for it, try and unleash James to be this attacking weapon that can get us back into the game, and trust Santos in this role with Caicedo? Because we have seen the pair of them playing quite well as a fixed duo at times, Santos and Caicedo. So it'll be very, very interesting, like I say, to see who gets the nod between Santos and Gusto. Because for me, that's the big decision. It's between those two players, and everybody else, I'd be pretty confident that the other 10 players will play. And it is just that one decision for me. There's more threat in midfield than on the wing, so I'd have Reece in midfield. I think that's fair. Again, I think it's just whether for me, it's whether he trusts Gusto or Santos more. I think Maresca trusted Gusto more. Let's see. The decision tonight will tell us a lot, because Rafinha, I would think, trusts Santos a little bit more. And I think that could be the decision on who plays in that role or who gets the nod to shift things around. The only thing that goes against Santos is because of him playing in here, it does mean Reece's role is sort of to do this. And that is an issue. That is an issue because, like I've said, he needs to be careful with his bursts. But it all depends on how sort of the medical staff. He's rested massively. I mean, he only came on for the absolute back end of the game at the weekend. So that is very interesting. Of course, we've got to stop the set pieces, as Puzzled Life's saying here as well. Yeah, this is very much a possibility. I think Gusto could come on in that last 30. I think we've got a lot of players that can come from the bench and help us in this game. Gusto, I think Garnacho off the bench isn't a bad option. I thought he was awful at the weekend. I'm not taking away from that. But I think from the bench, he's an option if Neto's not getting it done in that attacking position. Delap, just to give you something different. He can come on later in the game with João Pedro as a front two, like we've said. Maybe Esteval makes the bench. Who knows? And yeah, I think that we've definitely got some pieces on the bench that can help us with this game. But I see your shout of Racina trusting Santos more than Gusto. Yeah, that's my only. Yeah, I mean, he was so good against Arsenal in midfield in the league, wasn't he? Unbelievable. And I think that's the thing. He wasn't available. That's what really excites me about the game tonight is not Gusto, James and Caicedo both being back, because we were missing both of them. And let's say that we do go Gusto in here, because Gusto was also missing for the Arsenal game on the return fixture, as was Cole. Those 4 players that I've highlighted were not available. Having James and Caicedo in that midfield 2 with Enzo roaming, that midfield 3 versus Ødegaard, Zubimendi, Rice, if you win that battle, you give yourself a good chance. You give yourself a good chance of winning this game if Cole can produce a moment of magic. You can do the basics, defend the set pieces, keep it tight, keep it, again, this back 5 really strong in the rest defense, and continue to give our risk takers, namely Cole, Pedro, and Fernandez, those 3 in the middle, the chances to try and make something happen magical. And I think that that's our best route into this game. So it could well be Gusto on the wing and at right back becoming that right winger, and then James and Caicedo as that fixed pivot. And I would not hate it at all. I would be absolutely happy with it, because I think James last time on Declan Rice did a number, and I trust him. I trust someone like James to be in there. So it's a trust thing. Let's talk a little bit about a few sort of things that I've seen, a few noticeable patterns and things that I want to see in this game. Because I rewatched the Arsenal Man U game. I also rewatched the Arsenal Liverpool game, which was 0-0. And there's another game. There was 3. I can't remember what the third one was. I can't remember. Oh, it was the Villa. The Villa game where Arsenal lost 2-1. So that was back in December. So that's a little while ago. But there's some things that I like the idea of, and we'll talk about the press in a minute because this is something that I've sort of highlighted here. But Man U did a good job. They were playing in that sort of 4-4-2, quite compact. Dorgu's actually pressing on this occasion, but Dorgu and Ahmad were brilliant in this game. And then they had that front two who were a little bit more passive to sort of try and block the entry into the middle of the park. Of course, we have to go for this game. So in this game, when it was a 0-0 game state, a bit different. But I also think, and I'm interested to see hear what the chat says about this. What's interesting to me is we come into this game, and I think Rossini said it himself. It's 3-2. We're down by a goal, but we need to stay in this game. That first goal can decide the tie, and it can flip things. If we concede early, we're fighting massively uphill. So I think that the first half could be relatively cagey from us. I think we'll still try to take it to them at times, like when we're on the ball, but I think it will be with more caution to sticking with this sort of unit of 5 here and being compact and making sure that we don't concede a silly goal in that first half so that we're in it for the second half. Rossini himself said there was a comment about the second half. It was like the second half will be key. So that also makes me wonder, will Cole even start? Because again, like he's just come off the back of playing a full 90 at the weekend. Esteval, who may or may not even be there. Do we even go with no Palmer today? Do we literally see something like Neto and Garnacho as the wingers, and then we see Gusto going into this pocket, for example? Let's say that Garnacho did start and Palmer didn't, and we play ultra sort of counter-attacking in the first half and like really press heavy in the first half and almost try and sort of attack through the wings with Garnacho and Neto and see what we can get, see if we can get some set pieces. I do wonder how risk averse it will be. I'm hoping it's not this. I do hope Cole can start because I think that we need him. Like it's just one of the, especially with no Esteval, I think we need someone that's going to take those risks. And I think that that's what worked so well for Man U is they were brave against Arsenal. And we're going to show some examples of that. That's more likely, yeah. I don't disagree. I think we could definitely see that. I'm hoping not, but I think that it's possible. Please not. Yeah, like Bergie says. Need to score first. We can't play those wing pair. And I agree, but then the only thing that sticks in my head when you say that is we need to score first. Neto and Garnacho as a wing pairing, if he trusts them to press correctly, maybe he's thinking that half time we get Cole on. And like I said, the comment that's sticking in my head is him saying the second half will be key. Is he going to just try and keep us in the game for 45 minutes and then throw everything at them in the second half? Maybe that's going to be the strategy. It's going to be really, really interesting to watch, and I'm absolutely buzzing for it. Of course, I'm a bit nervous because I would my big thing this year was I wanted us to make it to Wembley. That was sort of my my goal. Like I didn't think we were going to challenge for a title at any point. Of course, this is true. This is true, John E. Good point. Good point. Although I will say I don't think there's extra time. I think it's just 90 and pens. So that's an interesting point. But I've completely lost my trail of thought, so I'm just going to talk until it comes back to me. And it hasn't. So that's brilliant. Yeah, I'm going to be. It's really intriguing to see what happens tonight, and I really, really, really want to make it to Wembley. So let's see what happens there. I reckon a player that normally doesn't do well will have a big moment today. Who would you think that would be? Who would that be, Conrad? Would we say? Oh, it'd be a good day for Neto to show up, wouldn't it? Really good day because he's been quite poor recently. At least in like final action. Biggest game of the year for a new coach. Yep. Honestly, yeah. Neto. Gittins isn't available, but yeah, Neto. So yeah, let's have a little look through this because I think the bravery of Man U was so key, and this is something I wanted to touch on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to sort of make it clear what United did so well, what threw Arsenal off a lot of the time, was they had these overloads in certain sides of the pitch, and they were willing to throw bodies over here. They were, instead of trying to look to overload just through the middle and through their patterns, Bruno and Mainu were key to this. That's not Mainu. That's not Bruno there. they were going towards the ball and they were playing on the ball side and they were going to make things happen and they were popping up on both sides of the pitch and they were playing within this sort of unit where they could have this essentially 5 Arsenal players against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Man U players. But also it was just really tough for them to sort of get involved. And they were able to sort of give themselves an overload and drag players over, which would then open it up for someone like Mbermo or players to stretch in behind. And those overloads on one side of the pitch, they became key and they were key for the goals. And I think it's the bravery to play into that space, because if you play into it, then the likelihood is these players are going to get sucked towards the ball. And then there's going to be space elsewhere to attack. And that's something that, especially if we have someone like Gusto attacking the right side or Neto attacking the left side, when we talk about this setup here, getting the ball into these three and having these three sort of roam and be free almost to express themselves. And we saw it the other day with certain players. If the ball's over here, if these three can all sort of come over here and get involved with the play, this is going to suck Arsenal all the way over. And then you have somebody like Neto who is fast enough and can arrive on that back post. And then you've got someone like Casado who could pop up into here, or you've got Cucurella who can make that run into this sort of half space so that there is a way of getting the ball over like this to someone like Neto in a 1v1, because you need to have a route to progress the ball through the pitch that isn't just a worldly switch of play, because not every ball is going to be this. Not every ball is just going to be able to clear the entire pitch. So you do need to have a route to get over and through. But I just want those players, Fernandes, Pedro and Palmer in general, to be brave today, because it worked for Man U with Bruno, Mbermo, Mainu and Cunha when he came on as well. And this is what worked for them really well. One particular player that I wanted to point out is Saliba. And Saliba and Gabriel are ridiculously good pairing. Ridiculously good. This is no feat on them. But they are so intent on keeping a +1 that when Arsenal do look to trigger the press, and again, if I just sort of draw the references here, if we look, this is sort of like everybody's man-for-man reference on the pitch. What you end up with is these two. And you can see here, if I just draw a line across it, sort of like this, 4v4, because they're going man for man. Got a 4v4 here. Saliba is the one for me that when I watch games back and you put a striker on Gabriel to pin him, Saliba is the one that gets caught between motions so often. He is quite often in a position where he wants to get up and get tight to the player, but he's also, Arsenal want to keep that +1 so that isn't a 1v1 against Gabriel. So Saliba will almost second guess himself, and he'll get caught on his toes, and he'll get caught on his heels, and he'll get caught between the two actions. And Bruno did this really well, where he'd wait for Zubimendi to drop with Mainu, and he would get close to Zubimendi in that cover shadow, Zubimendi, so that it either forces Saliba to come all the way, or Saliba gets sort of like, he doesn't want to follow all the way, so he just stays in a position around here, which he's fairly ineffective in. Yes, he's protecting the space, but he's not stopping Bruno Fernandes getting the ball and turning, especially if then that ball can say goes into Dorgu, and then that comes into here, and Bruno Fernandes can face forward, and then he's got runners, Dorgu and Burmo, Ahmad. And that's something like Bruno Fernandes was so key for. And this is what I want Enzo Fernandez and Palmer to sort of be in this game, which brings me to something a little bit wackier. And it's this. Now, it's not wacky at all, because if you've watched the videos that I've spoken about Liam Rossini's tactics in, you'll know he did this. You know he did this. In his early days, or in his, not even early days, just in his Strasbourg days, you would set up with that flat 4, the 2 pivot, and then a 4 across the front. But within that 4, the profiles can change. Now, of course, it forms a box midfield because you've essentially got 2 number 10s. What I've done and what I think would be brilliant for this game, because you want to test how much these guys want to step out, because they are more passive than they are aggressive in terms of pressing that space. What I want to see is Cole and Enzo dropping really deep into these cover shadows of Rice and Zubimendi, and having our most advanced players as Neto, who's our left winger, pinning, but also João Pedro, who's the striker, coming out to this right-hand side. And that is your two pinning outlets. They're your two highest players up the pitch. Rosinha did this with Panicelli. He did it with Omega. And he's done it on a number of occasions with the lap at Hull as well, where he'd come out to this right-hand side just during the build-up phase. Notice that once we then get into settled possession, things will reshift to how we had it a minute ago. But what this does is it not only tests how far these guys are willing to come out, and again, it either allows you, if they're not willing to come out, it allows these guys to be the free men, and we can progress the ball nicely, and we can get the ball into these players who can get on the turn and drive forwards to attack this space. And if they do come all the way, and on some occasions they have, which I'll show you in a minute, if they push sort of into here, then there's space in behind for Sanchez to try and hit, for Neto to make runs into, and João Pedro. But also, if we get stuck and we're struggling to play out from the back, because it happened a few times in the reverse fixture, Ødegaard was trapping Fofana quite well. Arsenal were locking on in their press fairly nicely. Zubimendi and Rice were sort of pushing up, and they were having this aggressive sort of 4v2 on each side, 6v6 in that first phase, and Sanchez being the spare man, and he would sort of end up seeing quite a bit of the ball. Then at that point, you've got an outlet, because we can go wide. Didn't mean to do that. We can go into these guys, and contrary to popular belief, I actually think Neto's quite good in these situations when that ball goes long, because instead of trying to win the ball, he knows his strengths. He knows he's a bit smaller, and he knows he's a bit daintier than someone like Timber. But what he does do is, as that ball travels, he's more so thinking, how do I stop Timber having a clean contact on this ball? And he'll try and wrap him up, and he'll try and sort of be awkward and sort of be buzzing around him, so that if that ball does then drop him behind, he can go. And he does a decent enough job of sort of securing the ball, winning fouls, at least making it difficult for Timber and sort of causing these second balls in here. So that's something that I actually, as much as Neto can be a frustrating player, that's actually something I don't get frustrated with him at. I think he's actually quite good at it. And then, like I say, João Pedro, you're giving him a better matchup to win aerial duels with, again, Hincapié or Calafiori, whoever plays there. They are centre-back profiles in that sense of in the air, but they're not Gabriel and Saliba in the air, especially Gabriel. But Saliba, and they're not those sort of stronger types who can win that duel more often. And I think that gives you someone like João Pedro who can win that duel. And then you can have the right back joining. You can have Cole Palmer joining. And if we can have that sort of little 3v2 on this side of the pitch against Gabriel and Hincapié, with James joining the attacking line, Pedro, again, winning that first duel, then that 3v2 could be key. So that's something that I'm sort of looking at for that first phase of play in the build-up. And then, like I say, then when it gets settled, it would become something a little bit more like this. And again, João Pedro goes into the striker, and things start to look a little bit more normal, as some would say. Eddie agreeing that Neto is clever. Man like Connor finally caught alive. Let's go, Lish. Let's hit the like button. That nearly couldn't get those words out there. Let's hit the like button. Let's see what we're at. We've got 118 people in the building, which is unbelievable. If you could all do me a massive favor, hit the like button, because we've got 118. If we can get that likes to 100, that would be huge, because I'm pushing for 10k right now. 10k subs. We're getting closer and closer. I would love to hit it this week, and there'll be a review out this week on the Arsenal game tomorrow night. Puzzled says done. Be like puzzled, like the stream. But yeah, there'll be reviews. There'll be a review tomorrow. There'll be a preview for the weekend. There'll be so much content coming on the channel in the next few days. And if you haven't already, look at the Mamadou Sarr video as well. Can you compare Sarr with Xhaka, Diamonde, and Huijsen? I'll do a different stream for that, because I'll need to go and grab some bits. But yeah, remind me and I will try to do that, Ryan. Don't think Palmer is starting this game after playing a full 90. That's something that we spoke about at the start. I wouldn't be surprised either. As Lish says, smash the likes. Let's have a little continued look at this, because we spoke about a little bit of how you can drag Saliba. But again, this is another occasion where Saliba, he gets caught because he knows that there's a chance that this ball could go long. And if it does, he doesn't want to get caught out not protecting that space. So as Fernandez drops into here, there's moments where you can sort of use that those behavioral traits of Saliba, who doesn't know whether to stay or go, to give yourself a chance to receive between the lines and make something happen. So that's something that I thought Bruno did really, really well against Arsenal. And that's something that I'd have been showing the players this week as a possibility to take advantage of. Someone like Saliba. Again, let Saliba, this is more so just to show the structure. But what this did is Casemiro dropped into the back line to cause that 3, as you got here. Shaw's pushed up a little bit. You've got both fullbacks sort of on the outside, which again is something we saw against West Ham. But it also means that, look, and Burmo, which is Gabriel's reference point, essentially, he's all the way in here. Ahmad is away from the touchline now, so he's an extra man. So, again, it's causing different references to get muddled. Saliba's got Bruno. He's pushing on to Mainu. Again, these guys are like, they're a bit zonal at this point, but they've all got their man that they're looking at. And then you've got Timber dropped off with Dorgu. But having these players, Ahmad and Burmo, Bruno, and then even Mainu here, this little kite, that is something that Man U were able to utilize with the bravery that they showed. Hope you're doing well and taking care of. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Do you genuinely believe we can win this game and get to the final? Of course, I'm skeptical. We're one down against Arsenal, who are ridiculously good defensively, can always score just a set piece. They'll be extremely tough to keep a clean sheet against, even though they are not the best team at attacking. Like, their underlying numbers in terms of open play isn't brilliant, but they're extremely hard to keep out because they're relentless in the sense of they will win plenty of set pieces from continuous sort of progression and pinning us in our own half at times. So we have to be up for it. It's going to be a dogfight. But do I genuinely believe we can? I do. I think we've got the quality to. But it all depends. Would you say Sarr and Badiashile are similar to each other? Somewhat. I think Sarr's a little bit better at covering ground than Badiashile, and I think that Sarr is slightly safer than Badiashile with progressive passing. But yes, I think if I was to compare him to one of our current defenders, then it's probably closest to him than it is to anybody else. It's closer to Badiashile than it is Wes, than it is Josh, than it probably is Trev. Trev's maybe the next closest. So yeah. I hear that for sure. I'd like to see Ibrahim Rabaj. Not going to happen today, but exciting player for sure. And then we're talking about the press here. Let's get into that a little bit, because the press is something that really sort of got to us last time, and I've made a few adjustments to what I think we should do. Now, last time, what hurt us was, again, we sort of pressed with this front line of this is what I do today, what I've got on screen. But what happened last time is we were unable to lock on to their entire midfield 3, because what we did was we had Enzo following Zubimendi. We had, I think on the day, we didn't have Casado, so it was Santos with Rice. And then we didn't have like that midfield 3. We had, I think, whoever was in the 10 that day. I think it was João Pedro in the 10, because Guiu played up front. Ødegaard was the free man, essentially. And what it meant was Fofana was, if Ødegaard dropped all the way into here, Fofana had such a distance, and there was times where Fofana was just getting caught in between the middle and he wasn't going. So this is something that I think we'll tweak today with the midfield 3. I think that we'll go man for man completely in the midfield. I think we'll have Casado on Ødegaard so that he can follow him all the way and he can put pressure on him. Fernandez on Zubimendi, Santos on Rice. And I think that by doing that, or Reece on Rice, whoever plays in here, by doing that, I think that we are making it clear that we're going to try and be man for man in that middle of the park. We're going to try and win those duels, and we're going to try and launch attacks quickly, because then our man to man at the top end is Pedro and Palmer. And if that ball does break, if Casado is able to win that ball back, then we have Pedro and Palmer who can secure it. And then you've got players like James and Neto who can then get forward to support. So I do think that our structure would be much better like this today. Now, what that does mean is Neto has to follow Timber and do almost a PSG job like he did on Hakimi. And I prefer this because I think if Neto knows that his job is fully to track Timber and become that left wing back, essentially, it's an easier reference for him than having to follow the fullback who starts deep. Like at the weekend, there was some times, or actually against Napoli, Neto's man was Di Lorenzo, and he was losing him every time in behind. But that's because Neto's role in the press was almost to be the left forward and stay forward, but then Di Lorenzo's runs, he wasn't tracking them because of that. So with Timber, I think if he knows that he's got to stay with Timber and become that left wing back, I think that suits this better, so that across the back line, we then can match up again. You've got Cucurella with Saka, Chalobah with Gyökeres, Fofana with Hincapié, and James with Trossard. And again, these guys can sort of interchange, which means that these guys can interchange as well, and they can have that sort of pass on effect. If Fofana, I trust these two to be able to pass their man. If Hincapié or Trossard sort of cross over, or if Hincapié goes all the way out to here, it's less of a issue than it was when Ødegaard was doing it. If Fofana doesn't go all the way and he just protects the space, because if Hincapié is the guy that's going to get on the ball and be the guy that's free, as long as you stop him sort of getting those 1-2s off and sort of giving it to Rice and arriving in here with space, if you can keep him sort of facing his own goal, or keep him sort of limited to his options to pass the ball, then I don't mind Fofana being the guy on him. So that will be interesting. And again, that's changed again to Noni. But that's the other thing is, like, on this occasion, it will probably be Madueke out wide. And that means that Timber may go into the half space. So again, it may be a case that because of Saka not playing, Cucurella, like, he's of course going to have to be out wide. Maybe we actually see, for example, Santos dropping into the back line again, Caicedo and Enzo like this, because let's say Fernandez on Ødegaard like this, and then João Pedro drops off to cover Zubimendi like this as the number, sort of, again, he's the number 9, but he's covering Zubimendi and following him. And then you leave both of your wingers, Palmer and Neto, on their 2 centre backs, and again that gives you a speed outlet on the attack. So this is another option for me. But the main thing is making sure that you are definitely man for man in this area of the pitch, because that's what sort of it tore our press apart last time, when one of these guys in the middle of the park didn't have a body to sort of go on to. Do you think Saka and Marino missing will make a difference? Saka missing, definitely. Will the doctors allow Palmer to play more than 45 minutes? No idea. Honestly, no idea. And I think that that's going to be really interesting, because again, if Palmer doesn't play, likely going to be Garnacho, because there's not many other options right now unless Esteval is somewhat available, like, and he does end up being able to play. Then it would probably look like this, right? And then on the ball, it would look, again, sort of both your wingers. Fernandez in here probably means that whoever, James stepping in as the 10 almost, or Neto, essentially, because we've seen Neto play on the inside quite a bit as well. So I think that, yeah, if Palmer isn't able to play, then it probably means Garnacho starts and Palmer comes off the bench, which is maybe why, like we said at the start, maybe that's why Rossini said that the second half is going to be key. Maybe that is why. So I think we've touched on pretty much everything I wanted to touch on tactically. The Saliba thing was the main thing. I'll show you a few of these as well, because I think that these are like the key moments that we sort of spoke about earlier, of sort of playing into and being brave. This is for the Dorgu goal, the second goal. Martinez plays into Dorgu, who's on the inside, and again, because of Shaw's positioning, he's sort of dragging a player away here, a reference, and Saka is, again, he's sort of between the two. So Dorgu is able to quite easily receive on his inside, because both of these players are sort of oriented away from him, and his body is able to sort of open up into that space. But the connection between Fernandez and Dorgu here was brilliant, and for that goal, because it was just multiple directions. Again, Saliba was getting sort of dragged in this scenario, and if we go on to the next clip, that's not the same one. So that's the first goal. And the second goal is a similar thing because, again, I wanted to show how they sort of play into this area of the pitch. Mainu, Bruno Fernandes, Cunha now, who was coming in off the left. But again, Fernandes playing short with Mainu, who can then find Cunha. And it's taking these players into this area of the pitch. Look how many players are gravitated towards 3 Manchester United players. Sesko is, again, he's sort of taken these guys away and making it difficult for them to pull away. For some reason, they're in a weird order because that's from the first goal. Not sure why they're in a weird order. But then as Cunha receives in this gap for his goal, look at where Saliba is. Because, again, they don't want to lose that 2v1. So Cunha is able to very easily turn out and sort of attack this space because these players have been drawn towards the ball. And simultaneously, because of Sesko, these players are now out of the game, but also these guys are now not able to be proactive. So you've now separated 2 units behaviorally because of the gravity on this circle here, and the sort of, again, the gravity on this circle, but in the opposite direction, and it allows for Cunha space. And again, this is somehow completely muddled up, but he attacks that space and he gets a ridiculous shot off because Saliba can't get out and scored the goal. So it's those moments that you need to try and play off of against Saliba. And again, this is just another example in the game where we played, and it just shows that that striker can find this space because, look, this is Guiu. This is Guiu. Zubimendi is being dragged by João Pedro, Rice by Enzo Fernandez. And look here, Guiu just drops off, but they don't want to go with him because, again, they're so sort of intent on defending this space so that somebody can't run into the space behind them, that this is possible. And if that's João Pedro, if that's going to be João Pedro who can sort of find the ball in this space, and we can drag Zubimendi and Rice apart because of how we sort of, again, set up this team, we can drag these 2 apart and find that ball into João Pedro, he could be key. He could be key in this game because if you can find his feet and then Cole and Fernandes go and join him, those 3 in close combination, that's where the magic can come from. So let's see. Let's see how we sort of approach that. But again, there's just some examples like this. This is the one, actually. This is the one that I found really, really interesting. Because if we just set this up to show the formation, this is literally our shape. This is the last game against Arsenal. We got the 3, got the box, and you got the 3 across the front. And again, so many similar things. You got the +1 here, and because of that +1, Saliba doesn't want to step out all the way with João Pedro. Zubimendi's gone in here, Declan Rice gone in here. They're trying to lock on man for man, and Trossard's gone back here. Locked on man for man in that final phase, or even with the fullbacks, they're sort of half and half with their positioning. What this does is, he doesn't realise it, and this is something I'd be showing the players, but when the central centre-back has the ball and they can afford that press to lock on, that's actually Saliba's most vulnerable moment. Because when he has the ball, when the central centre-back has the ball, he's so worried about that long ball in behind, and it's like his behaviour and his tendencies is to protect the space instead of protect the man and stop the man from receiving. So if you can purposely get this front press to trigger with a back pass or a sideways pass into one of these players, and then try to hit Saliba's side pocket player. If Zubimendi, and that's the key, if Zubimendi has triggered the press, if you can then hit that opposite side pocket, which if I get the green just to show it's João Pedro, you will find space because Saliba's first instinct is to drop. It's not to go all the way. And this happens a lot. And you can see, again, João Pedro makes a run off into this space, and Saliba doesn't want to go and stop that ball. Now, yes, on this occasion, probably the right thing to do because Gabriel, he can sort of pass him on and then he can still protect this space. But it's still a tendency that you can see with Saliba, and it's something you can do to give yourself an advantage. And I think that that's something that I'd be showing João Pedro and Enzo Fernandez if he's going to be the guy playing in this left pocket. I'd be showing these 2 lots of clips of William Saliba and how his tendencies to defend that space are in this sort of channel here, because I think that that is an area where Chelsea can look to target as a way to get on the ball, find attacks in the final third, and see what we can do from there. Just trying to see if there's anything here again. Sort of Saliba, a little bit flat-footed, and that ball's now instead because Saliba's doing neither. He's on Bruno Fernandes, but he wants to protect this space. He's between the two. Casemiro is actually the one that's able to get into this space here behind the two midfielders, receives this pass, and all of a sudden Man U are basically against that back line because, again, and Burmo's here as well with Gabriel and pinning. So that's something that we could see from someone like Andre Santos or Casado as well. And I think that there is, if we're brave, there is ways to hurt them. There is ways to hurt them. So that's a lot of what I wanted to talk about for the last sort of 10 minutes, because we'll make this about an hour. Do we have any questions? Whose man-for-man tactics do you prefer, Maresca's or Rosenior's? They're so similar because I mean, man for man, like there's man for man tactics, if like quotation marks. It's just whether you want your weak spot to be. And I think that our weak spot more recently, at least with Fofana being dragged out of position in the Arsenal game in the reverse fixture, but also with how large the gap becomes between one of our midfielders and one of theirs, if they drop into the back line, that large gap like this, we often have our weak spot in the centre, which I don't like. And I think that what Maresca did quite well with his, and again, there was like once we were in settled play, Maresca had some really, really bad man for man. That was my biggest gripe with Maresca, and I'm a huge Maresca guy. I like Maresca a lot. But that was my biggest thing with him is the persistence on man to man in the middle third. And I think with Rosenior's ideas, or with Maresca's ideas, sorry, the front press was a little bit more effective because we protected the sides a little bit better. Our weak spot was the sides, and we did side jumps instead. And whilst there's no correct way, like it depends who you've got, what profiles you've got. I think it suited the profiles that we had at the time because it protected the likes of Fernandes and Cole in the middle of the pitch by keeping that condensed and not having them jump large distances, but instead having the players that are going to jump large distances as Pedro Neto or Garnacho, and then Malo Gusto or Marc Cucurella. And those players, they have more intensity in that jump. So that's one reason for me. I would have thought we used the lap to pin Saliba and Gabriel. The thing is, I think that it makes more sense to go with João Pedro because I don't think you actually want to play into the pin. Like, the way I put it is, if you give these two a body that is actually going to try and hustle them, I think that they get more comfortable. And I think that having Delap there would make them more comfortable. I think someone like João Pedro, who's more mobile, more willing to drop into here and test their willingness to come out, while still having the ability to hold it up as well. I think João Pedro just makes so much more sense against Saliba and Gabriel and not giving them a body to fight, essentially. Rosenior's tactics relies on opponents pressing them, which could be a problem against good teams that go 1-0 up. Yeah, I mean, the baiting, the pressure is, of course, it's a big thing. I wouldn't say it's completely reliant upon it yet. Like, I still want to see how things evolve. And I think we saw with the changes that we took the game to West Ham at the weekend, I think that Rosenior is very willing to sort of make changes and to almost empower the players to go and make the change. And we saw, like, I think Monday Night Football said it as well. I think Rosenior massively undersold himself when he said it wasn't tactical at all, because I think the tactical changes that he made against West Ham in the second half were huge. But I also think that that's part of his managerial style, is empowering the players to believe that they can turn the game over and they can turn the game on its head. Because it's those instructions that give someone like Cole the confidence to just try something outrageous. And if it comes off, then that's where the confidence comes from and momentum, and you get the crowd on their feet and the crowd starts to play into it. And it's how things start to snowball. I hope you're right, Lord Slims. I hope we do get a 3-0. Score predictions. Let's end on score predictions. Everybody put your score predictions in. Is Saar better on the ball than Trev? I think he's more comfortable at sort of baiting pressure. If you haven't seen my video from yesterday, go check that out because that describes it quite well, I think. Yeah, I do like that about Liam. He seems quite adaptable. Yeah. Let's see how many likes we've got as well just before we end, because I'm hoping we can get close to 100. 75. 75 likes. Please, if you haven't already, we've got 122 people in here. Should be very, very easy to get that to 100 likes. Please, people. It would really, really help me on that push to 10k subs. Really, really help me. 2-1 Chelsea on pens. So you think we win the game 2-1 and then we win on pens? That would be cinema. That would be cinema. 3-2 Chelsea win on pens. Do Anselmino and Achampong play the same position? Well, I mean, they're technically both right-sided centre-backs, but Anselmino's more of a central centre-back on the ball, whereas Achampong's more of a wide centre-back on the ball. So no, like they could easily play together. Junior, I will. Is that about watching the SAR video? Yeah, give that a watch. I think that will help you with that question for sure. Because I think that they're different types of player on the ball, and like temperaments is the thing. 3-1 Chelsea. A lot of confidence. 1-0 in normal time, and then winner by Cole. Winner by Cole. There's so much confidence, and I love it. I love it because if we win this game, Saar can defend wide areas. Yes, I would say. Like again, maybe it's not like Josh or Wes level, but he can do it. Definitely, he's got the athleticism and the sort of long-limbed type that can do that. Bad feeling. 2-1 Chelsea, but lose on pens. Interesting. More confident in these games than I am against bottom half teams. I think that's fair. But the thing is, we haven't had that same sort of experience with Rossigna yet. Like Napoli, yeah, 3-2. But I think that's a question I've still got for Rossigna, is big game setups. And I'm really, really interested. Sorry, I got like it's like when I've got like a burp that I feel like it's going to come up. And I didn't want to burp on stream, but it's like it's just sat there. So I was just focusing on not burping. What was I going to say? That yeah, I'm really interested to see Rossigna's big game set up tonight in a game where we have to go for it. Like I say, does he go more passive first half, more aggressive second half? I'm really, really intrigued. Aerials. Which player would you rather for us? Out of who? See, Xhaka and Sarr. I like Mamadou Sarr. I actually do. I think he's a good centre back, and I think he has the potential to be a top centre back. But I don't think that the levels of I think Xhaka is a complete level above in terms of talent. I really do. I think Xhaka can very, very easily become a top 5 defender in the world. I think he's that good. So yeah, but I really like Sarr. I do, and I think he, like I said in the video that I did yesterday, I think I perfectly tried to put across that the reason that I think Sarr's came in is less so for progressive qualities, like actual progressive himself, and more so for his ability to understand what Rossigna wants and circulate play at the right time, and to be confident enough to bait pressure, which some of the defenders look a little bit timid with at the minute. Those ideas that we've got. Okay, 85 likes. We need 15 more likes to hit 100. We're going to end the stream in 2 minutes. So please smash the like button. Parmano rest. Very, very likely that he could just come on in the second half. Yes, that's a worry. But yeah, especially with Xhaka learning from Van Dijk. Yeah, true. Because that's a partnership next year. Xhaka and Van Dijk together. If Konate like leaves, and that's the reason that they're so like intent on showing Xhaka the pathway and like bringing him straight in, because I think he's ready. Xhaka and Van Dijk as a 2 is scary good. Scary good. Seem to always start slow under Rossigna. We must have a good first half against Arsenal. I know this is boring. I just want stay in the game. If we go in at halftime 0-0 and we've got that team talk and we can come out and we can go aggressive second half, I'm fine with that. I know it's boring, but I'm fine with that. Stay in the game. That's my biggest thing. Don't lose the game in the first 45 minutes. Stay in it. If we go 1-0 up, then obviously so much better. So much better. But my biggest thing, just do not lose it in that opening 45 minutes. Keep the game alive. And that's what Rossigna said in his presser as well. So I have a feeling that'll be his message. Sanchez keeping a clean sheet. A 3-0. Can you imagine? That would be a 3-0 win. Go through to the cup final. But it's not even at that point. If you win 3-0, it's not just about progressing. We've just beaten Arsenal 3-0. Like that sort of result would be a statement as much as it is a sort of happy circumstance to get to the final. Do you think Rafinha is playing the formation that suits the players more? It's the same formation. It's just profiling of players. Like we saw at the weekend, the profiling to put Hato in midfield and put Gusto at right centre back instead of Gusto at sort of DM and Hato at left centre back. That was poor profiling for me in the first half to do that. It's just about profiling, and it's just about getting players in positions where they feel confident. So yeah, I don't think it's formation based really. Right, we're going to end the stream there because I do have quite a bit of work to do, and obviously before the Chelsea game later. Please, if you haven't already on your way out, drop a like because we're like 10 away from 100. That would be brilliant. We've had an hour-long stream. Support the channel in any way you can. And I'll be back tomorrow with a Chelsea versus Arsenal review. Hopefully, reviewing how Chelsea smashed Arsenal at the Emirates to make it to the Carabao Cup final. Fingers crossed, up the Chelsea. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And I'll see you guys next time.